Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the C-Man, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the C-Man's Cinema Sit Down. We are back in the chair doing it old school style. Last video, my review for Black Adam, I kind of had to do it old school because I couldn't get my thoughts together on the walk home from the movie last night. If you want to know what those thoughts ended up being, you can see them right up here. But this movie, I didn't really have much of a choice. It's streaming only. You can only see this one on Hulu. And you know, while I've missed the boat on Spooktober this year, and I certainly apologize for not having a full list for you guys for all October, I've definitely been watching some spooky and some horror-related things, and this was one that was high on my list. The minute I heard that David Bruckner had this, and the direction and thoughts of things where it could be going, I was pretty excited. And then I watched it, and went, oh, David Bruckner, you did even better than I thought you were going to do, man. Like, this movie so hit. If you were going to reboot a franchise, goodness me, this is definitely the way to do it. What am I talking about? Why don't you pull up a chair? Take a seat. We are getting ready to dive in, spoiler-free, into Hellraiser. And I am, as you know, a big-time classic horror junkie. And Hellraiser is one of those movies that, like, you just, it's, if you're a horror fan, you gotta be here for Hellraiser. I mean, it does things specifically in like the body horror realm that at that time you weren't seeing a ton of, and what Clive Barker brought to that character and to that world, I always was just so fascinated by, man. And when you're talking about the classics, Pinhead is an undeniable, man. Like, when I think of the classic horror villains, man, it's like Mike, it's Jason, it's Freddy, it's Chucky, it's Pinhead, man. I mean, you know, Pennywise, and there are other people there, but like, that's always been in that classic horror realm for me. And it's a property that I love because it does so many different things than the other classic horror properties, and really goes into some dark places and visually gives you things that you're certainly not used to seeing. And the idea of bringing it back was extremely exciting, especially when you heard that Jamie Clayton had been cast to play the priest, to be Pinhead. And she, we'll talk about her, but the minute she got cast, I was excited. Pinhead is a character that I think works exquisitely as a female, and there's certain elements to Pinhead that, you know, you can do some really cool stuff with, and it's a take that I thought would be worthwhile. And then when I saw the visual of Jamie Clayton, I was like, yeah, no, we don't have anything to worry about here. Like, this is gonna hit, and it's gonna hit hard. And I have my good buddy Joe, who I see a lot of horror movies with, talk to him after I watched this one. He's like, bro, I've watched it 12 times and it's only been up for like 4 days. He's like, it's his Hellraiser's all-time favorite horror franchise. That's his favorite. And he was so ecstatic. The conversation that we had after I watched it, like, it just made me so happy, because while I love those movies, it's been a long time since I've watched all of them. So to have someone who goes to them as frequently as Joe does, just sit there and be like, man, to see stuff they pulled from the books, which I had never read, to see stuff that they moved from all the different movies and the way that they utilize the lore in this movie. As a Hellraiser fan, I don't know how you could do it any freaking better. I mean, Bruckner and writers Ben Collins, Luke Piotrowski, and the man, the myth, the legend, David S. Goyer. You put David S. Goyer in something, man, he's gonna get you money, man. Like, he's so good. I love Goyer. But those four guys, they really understand this world, and the story that they utilize here, what I like is it's not a rehash or a reboot in the sense that we're redoing the original Hellraiser. It almost just feels like a new chapter to Hellraiser, and I guess you could call it a reboot in the sense that, like, you know, Jamie Clayton's taking over as the priest. But it's one of those, like, it definitely does feel more like another chapter than, like, rebooting the first movie and redoing it. What it does and pulls lore-wise, which took several movies to really build the world that we get, we kind of get all of it here. In different ways. Like, we don't get all of it, but you definitely get a much more in-depth take on the mythology and how the Cenobites and the box works in a much more full way than you get in the original Hellraiser movie. And I really love the way that they played with the lore of this world, and it really is reflective perfectly of the things that this franchise can do. And what Bruckner does from the horror perspective is just wonderful, man. Like, the movie is, like I said, it's really well written, and as it moves through, like, it's just fascinating to see where it takes it and how it builds on the stuff that's been put before. And you know, we end up in this story with our main character Riley, who's a recovering drug addict, and you know, comes across the box, and you know, she kind of has to journey through figuring out what the box means and navigating how this thing all plays out, and the way it ties in to Goran Visnajic's character Voight, and like how those worlds blend together to pull the Cenobites in that world. Like, it really works from a writing perspective, and it's really strong, I think, from a story to an execution there. But then the visual, man, like, one of those things from the original that I really love, and one of the things that Barker brought, the reanimating and building of a corpse from nothing, right? Like, just from blood to build into, like, it's some of the most squirmish, like, you squirm so hard stuff in that movie. But it was one of those things that, like, I so identified with Hellraiser, like that level of body horror. And the movie, it takes a little while to get into the body horror. We get tastes of it, we get flavors of it, and there, you know, for a little while I was like, this movie's doing everything I need in a Hellraiser movie. I need that body horror to really kick in. And there's stuff around Voight that really felt like a nod back to that original Hellraiser, and then there is just classic Hellraiser body horror stuff that starts to take place in this movie. And when you get to about a little bit past the halfway point, like about halfway through the second act and then all of the third act, the stuff you're waiting for, the stuff you're here for visually in a Hellraiser movie, you get all of it. And like I said, the thing that Bruckner does the best is just how he uses that type of production value, right? The way you use the body horror, the set pieces here are huge. The mansion that we're in for good chunks of this movie, like, really cool things. And he puts the camera in wonderful spots, and the way that he builds slowly to seeing the faces of the different Cenobites, specifically, you know, Clayton. Like, we see her early on, but you don't get to, like, really get up into all what Clayton's doing until you get a little bit later. But what he does there, and how he introduces you to the Cenobites, how he introduces you to the world, and how he just slowly ramps that horror stuff up. And as it starts to hit, man, I mean, it just hits in ways where the whole time I was just like, yes, 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 do that, oh, I love that, oh shit, I just got scared. Like, he really, really understands what he's doing, not only in this world, but with a horror movie, and he crafts a really fantastic, slow burn horror flick. You know, one of those things with Hellraiser, you're not here for quick pacing, you know what I mean? But you go on a journey visually and both story-wise. That it's one of these things where we were talking about Black Adam, how the story, a lot of times I didn't feel like enhanced the action and the stuff that was going on for the characters and what the director is doing. And here, the story and the everything that Bruckner is doing, they enhance each other the whole way through, man. It's wonderful. And as a Hellraiser fan, I really couldn't be happier. And then when you get into, I mean, like I said, like the set designs, the production, the visual effects, the makeup jobs, like, there's just wonderful things. If you like that type of horror, it's wonderful. If you don't, you might be disgusted, squeamish, you might get sick. There's some gnarly stuff in this movie, but if you know where you're going and where you're coming from with Hellraiser, it's all exactly what you would hope for. And all that stuff is just executed so well. The score really works fantastically. The sound design around Clayton is spectacular, right? Like, it's one of those things where Pinhead's voice is so iconic, and it's so deep, and it's so low. And I was really interested to see what the voice makeup was going to be with Clayton's performance, and we'll get to Clayton in a minute, but how they manipulate her voice to get the Pinhead sound that you want coming from a female, shit worked so good. And like I said, when you get into the performances, Jamie Clayton is fantastic. Like, if she hadn't, I don't know a lot about Jamie Clayton, but if she, personally wasn't a Hellraiser fan prior to this, I would hope that she was. But, like, if she wasn't, she did her homework, man. She looks and feels exactly how she should. And like I said, when I was talking to my buddy Joe, when it gets into like the stuff with the priest and the different Cenobites and some of the characters that we see pop up, there's some new Cenobites, there's some classic Cenobites. He really was saying to me, they really nailed that stuff, and they took that to the places that, as a Hellraiser fan, I was hoping for. And then, much like me, Jamie Clayton is sublime, man. She gets the character and executes it perfectly. There's nothing to worry about in that realm. Then you got Odessa Zion, who is your lead here. And Riley is definitely a different lead than we've seen previously, but her story and where it goes, like I said, is done so well. And so it works so fascinatingly to get you into this world and weave through all the different parts of the lore, and how Riley takes that in and reacts to things, and how her life is, a mess. And this just adds to it, and the thing that drives her throughout the movie. I really thought it provided a Zion really great stuff, and I thought she was a phenomenal lead. Jamie Clayton is what you're here for, and you're gonna get your Pinhead, but in small doses. You need somebody who can carry you to all those places, and a Zion really, really impressed me in that area. And then, of course, like I said, you got Goran Visnajic, who kind of is the lead-in to that, right? Like, his story is what gets, Riley's story going, and what he's asked to do as far as being someone who knows this world already. I've really dug it, and what they do with him as a character, specifically later in the movie, really enjoyed it. And then when you look at the characters around here, I don't necessarily think any of them are as well done as she is, but they're all there to support. You have Brandon Flynn, who plays her, I think it's her brother Matt. His that driving force is something that's certainly interesting throughout the movie. Drew Starkey, who plays her boyfriend Trevor, it serves his purpose well. The only other real standout for me out of the group that I think supports Riley's story is Adam Faison, who plays Colin. Really enjoyed him, specifically in the third act when he gets to kind of kick in a lot. And the relationship between those two in particular, and what's their driving force, was the thing that I really enjoyed about that stretch of the movie. And ultimately, where they take Riley's character and how they play all this stuff out inside of the world of Hellraiser, it was just, I could not have asked for anything more. So let's get the Sea Maniacs up, man. This Spooktober, Hellraiser definitely was hitting hard, man. Like I said, the performances are solid across the board. Jamie Clayton thrives as the priest, aka Pinhead. There was no doubt in my mind that we were gonna run into any issues, and she really, really crushes it, where nobody should have an issue that Pinhead has changed gender and has a female playing the character now, because it doesn't matter. She's phenomenal. Odessa Zion is the other big standout. She carries the movie really well. I like the places that we get to go with Riley, and there's lots of interesting things there. There is an interaction between her and the priest toward the end of the movie where you're really understanding the things that are horrible. And a lot of this movie deals with, in this world, deals with the horrors, of what you can do to a person, specifically around the Cenobites. And there's stuff with Riley's character where they have an interaction, and there's just this, all right, you everybody's gonna suffer, and the look at suffering and how that plays through Riley's character is really excellent. I thought Zion crushed that stuff. When you're talking about that story, what you get from Ben Collins, Luke Piotrowski, and David S. Goyer is phenomenal. These guys know the world and the story that they build, like I said, around the idea of suffering and how it plays into the world of the Cenobites and the demons and the main characters that we have here. Really, really works quite well and displays the lore and the world of Hellraiser in a reboot in a way where you really get the full depth of this world right out the gate if you've never experienced it before, and it really does honor the whole franchise quite well. And I think a lot of that has to go to director David Bruckner, who just crushes this, man. I mean, visually, this movie is fantastic. He knows where to put the camera. He knows how to make it move and feel like a Hellraiser movie. The execution on the body horror and the different gory type elements of the movie are tremendous. And just, like I said, he's a guy who you can tell, like the writing staff here, understands this world and brings it to life in ways that I didn't even think were possible, and I'm so happy that they were. Where does that leave the Seaman? It's 5 out of 5 Sea-Maniacs, dude. This thing is tremendous. Like, it is... it's gonna become in rotation quite frequently. And, I mean, like I said, my buddy Joe knows this world better than me, and he liked the movie, I think, more than I did. That should speak quite highly for Hellraiser. If you are a fan of this franchise, and you haven't yet, you gotta go dip your toe into this. It's so good. And now, I want to know if you're going to, man. If you are a fan of Hellraiser, is this on your to-do list if you haven't watched it yet? Are you excited about a reboot? Are you nervous about a reboot? I promise you there is nothing to be worried about here. This thing should make every Hellraiser fan happy. I don't know if it'll make every horror fan happy or every critic happy, but I promise you, if you ride and die with Hellraiser, this thing is going to work. And if you've seen it, do you feel that way if you're a Hellraiser fan? If you're not a Hellraiser fan, how does this movie hit for you? I'm so fascinated to see what you guys are thinking around this, and I want to see all of that down below in the comments section, where I look forward to talking to all of you. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, and if you're new, you want to come hang out with the Seaman as we get through the rest of October, see what other spooky reviews and things I can toss in here. You want to see some trailer reactions or other content. You just want to show a little love and support because you like this crazy guy. Maybe the haircut got you back on board. You weren't about long-haired Seaman, but now he's back to short-haired Seaman. You're like, hey, I want to support that guy. Well, it's really, really easy, man. Come join Sea-Maniac Nation simply by jumping over there, hitting that subscribe button, hit that little bell if you want those alerts, and until next time for the Seaman Cinema Sit Down, I've been the Seaman. I'm signing off. Peace. Oh, hey, what's going on? You must be sticking around because you're looking for more content featuring this guy. Well, guess what? You're in the right place. You can check out more videos right here and right here. And if you have and you want to come join that Sea-Maniac Nation, you can hit that subscribe right over there.